Hello and welcome to WhatKeepsYouAwake.tv. It's time again to dive into the hustles, the hurdles, and the highs that keep small business leaders up at night. I'm your host, David Hooser, and I'm very excited to welcome today's guest, Allan Draper. Allan is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and business coach with more than 20 companies that he's founded in numerous industries. He also has a new book out that we'll dive into called Pack Your Lunch. Allan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David. Excited.
Right. Let's get started with our foundational questions. So tell me, as a guy who doesn't sugarcoat the cost of entrepreneurship, what keeps you awake late at night?
You know, it's different than what used to. When I first started businesses, when I was first getting started.
How many years ago?
It was about a decade ago.
All right, not that long ago, but you've got a while. You got a little bit under your belt.
Yeah. I think it was more, hey, is my company going to survive? Okay. And now I've had some companies fail with some tragic failures, honestly. And it's not that stuff so much as it is like, it sounds cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. And those are like my relationships. I own a pest control company, so I have hundreds of technicians driving all over in several different states as we speak, and them just getting home to their families safe at night. Yeah. So it's really those two things: making sure people get home to their families, and just my relationships, especially with my business partners.
So HR is certainly employee, issues are certainly big concerns for anyone, and obviously. So how'd you get started in pest control? Or tell us a little more about your beginnings.
Yeah, the longer that I'm in business, the more I realize that being an entrepreneur is like, it's not like a profession as much as it is a reflection of my personality. It's true. I like football. I like business, right? It's like, and I think some of that's in my DNA. Like I had uncles that, would have small, lawnmower repair shops. Sure. My dad had a little auto body shop. And so ever since I was a little kid, I would hustle door to door, raking leaves, mowing lawns. I had a newspaper route. I ended up going to law school and practiced law for a few years here in Phoenix.
Okay, so you are on the state bar.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, you can find me there.
Okay.
So, while I was practicing law, I realized it's time for me to actually go hang a shingle. And I had a brother that was working for a pest control company at the time and had owned one in the past and was having an exit. And so we decided to hook up and have a go at it.
Very cool. So that's how you got started outside of your corporate job, so to speak, your legal profession position.
Yep.
And then got into that space. So just you and your brother at the beginning?
Yep. So it was, and we recruited a pretty large sales team in the beginning.
Okay.
And we started with door-to-door, which allowed us to scale the company pretty quickly.
Because 10 years ago, that was kind of the way, right?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, a lot of people don't know this. It still is.
It still is for that sector.
Yeah, it's just the risk is really low because it's a 100% commission job, and you choose who your customer is, which is perfect.
Yeah.
We like high-end customers that don't have a problem with monthly billing, and it's a great recurring revenue model.
Okay.
And we've had quite a bit of success with it.
But you still, in light of all the things, social media and, let's say the TikTok era that we live in, you still find in that business, in that sector, door to door, the good old flesh pounding method is the best way.
Yeah, I mean, and I obviously own a digital marketing agency, so we do some of that also, but it's still... Of our new revenue, it's probably 40 to 50% on the doors. Something
on the
about
doors.
Okay.
There, yeah. And so now how many locations are you in your pest control business?
So we have 10 different branches in, I think it's 7 states. So, cruising along.
And if you have a branch in, let's say, a metro market like Phoenix, does that mean you cover the whole market, or do you cover communities within the market?
Yeah, so and we do service the Phoenix area, so but it's mostly East Valley. But it depends on the size. So as your customer base expanse. One of the keys to pest control is the concentration of your customers, because you don't want to be driving an hour to service one house.
Right.
So, but we're in Detroit, Denver, Reno, Salt Lake, Boston, Long Island, New York. So some of those more established areas like Detroit and Boston are really big for us. We service almost the entire metro area.
Okay, gotcha. Is there a name you guys operate under in all states, or do you?
Yeah, so it's Proof Pest Control.
Proof? Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. I know that's a great business, especially when you live in Arizona.
Oh yeah, necessary.
But anywhere you've been, I know I've been struggling. I've got a place now in Vegas, and the mosquitoes are killing us. My wife is a mosquito magnet, so it's guaranteed that if there's a mosquito within a 5-mile radius and she walks into the backyard, it's coming her way. So,
yeah, some people seem to be like that.
Yeah. So you still have a full ownership in the pest control business, but you also now market, and you would market for anyone in the same industry, a competitor even if.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, so I own a digital marketing agency called Lizard SEM.
Okay.
Headquartered in Charlotte. And we focus on home service businesses because that's what we know. And to be honest with you, pest control and a lot of those home service businesses, they're founded by blue collar workers, people that just know how to work hard and may not understand how to set up a Google AdWords campaign. Right. And so we make that possible for them.
So you help the audience that we're promoting to right now.
Sounds like, yep, exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, cool. And then, so what are some of the tips that you would give to someone who's just starting out in home services? What would you say your top 2 or 3 words of wisdom are?
I think in the beginning you have to get real clear on what you want to do, because I get questions all the time. I just had somebody ask for a phone call because they have some questions about the direction they want to take their company. And I'm going to turn that back on them, and I'm going to say, well, what do you want to do with it? Right. Because a lot of pest control companies, it's like a dude in a truck. Right. And that's a lot different from what we did. So it really depends on, where they want to end up. So number one, I'm going to say, get real clear. And things are going to change. Life happens. Goals change. You'll run into some money. You'll run into some issues. But you need some type of target vision. Like, hey, I want to pass this company on to my kids. I want to sell this company in 3 years. I want to build this company to $100 million. Whatever that is, try to get clear on that. And then I think number 2 is, and we were talking about this a little bit before we hit the record button, but that is like excitement is common, but endurance is rare. So, and what I mean by that is everybody has a business idea. Everybody gets excited about something. So what? That doesn't impress me. It doesn't impress me at all. It's like, where are you going to be in 10 years? Are you still going to be working on it? Right. Because that's what matters. So those are the 2 pieces of advice I'd give somebody wanting to start.
And that's what the book goes into. You go into a lot more details of what the true cost of starting your business really is.
Exactly. So one of the problems I had early on with my business is I was sacrificing the wrong things, thinking that they were helping my business. For example, when I started my first company, I quit my legal job in Phoenix. I had a well-paying legal job. Yeah. I quit and I moved to Detroit. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old at the time. People thought I was crazy, especially the people that I went to law school with, because they just went through hell and back with me, and they're like, what are you doing? And it's like, that was my opportunity, and I don't ever let something good hold me back from something greater. Great. But when I started to have the young children, there were days on end where I wouldn't see my kids at all because I'd leave before they woke up, and I would come home after they were in bed. And I thought, like, okay, that's a badge of honor for me because I'm sacrificing. Right. And then I realized it didn't move the needle. And so over the last decade, I kind of compiled the 13 sacrifices that actually move the needle. And at the time, I felt so alone. I felt like, why do I feel like this? Why am I having to sacrifice these things? And then I realized that I wasn't alone, that a lot of people are running into the same issues.
Same battles.
But the problem is everyone's trying to sell something and make it easy, especially in the Instagram era right now. Right. It's always like, hey, if you're not in a private jet after your first year in business, you're doing something wrong. Right. My book kind of flips that idea on its head and gives the real cost and the real picture of what starting a business is like.
So you mean the future of America is not just becoming a Facebook influencer?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
So there could be more to it. Actually, I just saw an interview too, or a statistic that Gen Zers, 75% were taking a parent or a friend to an interview.
I don't even understand that. That's crazy.
It's a different
Into
world,
the interview with them, or
with
they
them.
just go to the
with them, trying to get their mother into the interview for. It's maybe a support animal or something. I get a doll, a stuffed animal, but I don't understand the world we're becoming.
Yeah, honestly, along those same lines, there's something to be said about having a chip on your shoulder. And I was just talking to my wife about this. We were at the pool, kind of having a staycation here, and we're talking about our kids, especially my daughter. She's 7.
Right.
And if we wanted, she would never have to worry about a thing in her life. Neither would her kids or her kids' kids or whatever, right? And it's like that's not how I grew up.
You want to bring
and my
up.
wife asked me, she's like, well, wouldn't you say how you grew up? So I've slept on the floor for the first 6 years of my life. I slept in a bedroom with 3 other boys, and me and my brother slept next to each other because there were 4 of us in one bedroom with one set of bunk beds. And I grew up with 8 people in a 3-bedroom house, and I wouldn't change it for the world because I had that chip on my shoulder.
Right.
So that when I graduated high school when I was 17, I didn't need my mom in the interview with me.
Right.
And I didn't feel entitled to anything because I didn't have anything.
You didn't have anything to lose, nowhere to go, only up. So, and that changes your perspective on things. And if you're an entrepreneur, that's really the feeling you should have. First and foremost is you're the gladiator, you're the warrior for your own battle.
Yep.
And the result of that battle is all a matter of how much energy and effort you put into it.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And then now on your marketing business, what do you see out there what are the mindsets of your customers? Are they ready to go into battle? Are they needing you to carry the battle for them? Do they stand up and you say I'll do this, but you have to follow through? Because you can't set as they close a client most of the time. You deliver them a good prospect, but are they stepping up and really going out and doing what it takes to close?
Yeah, I think so. And we do some advising on that because you're exactly right. You can lead a horse to water scenario, right? But we do some advising on the logistics, especially if it's like, hey, we notice because we have data on how many times their phone rang or how many leads they got. And so we do some advising on that, but you're exactly right. They need to cover that gap between lead or interested party and customer / client.
Yeah.
And so, and we can't always do that for them. So, but AdWords are so expensive now. In COVID, we were getting them for dirt cheap, and they're really expensive now. And chat is really changing search right now.
Right.
Chat is a lot of people are searching via chat. And so we're starting to develop SEO, AI-enabled websites now. We just developed our first one that is AI enabled. So it recognizes like how search via AI will find and crawl that website. But honestly, my customer base, our clients at Lizard SEM, we're like the lawyers or the CPAs where it's like, hey, I need a website and I need an AdWords campaign set up. I don't really want to get into the details. I want to focus on keeping my trucks on the road.
Yeah, right.
You do that, and we're happy to take that on.
And they tell you I'm in this space, which you already know, the pest control space. Yep. So you can easily customize, optimize a platform that you've already pre-built for the sector.
Absolutely.
And then fine-tune it for them.
Yeah, we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Okay. So in your book, tell us, give us a little kind of overview of what we would expect.
Yeah, so I talk about the 13 main sacrifices that I ran into. And I think one of the key takeaways from my book is this concept of non-negotiables. And in our lives, we have to identify those things, the proverbial large rocks in the jar, and we put those in there first. Like I was saying, I was sacrificing time with my kids.
Yep.
And so what I was doing is I was sacrificing something of lesser value or something of greater value and achieving something of lesser value.
Yeah.
I will never be able to spend time with my 4-month-old again.
Right.
And there was a moment where I came home and they were already in bed, and I remember, and it hit me like, what am I doing this for, right? So, so it's, I walk through the process in the early stages of the book, talking about helping people find their non-negotiables. And I have a list of things. So in my life, I organize it into 7 categories, and this is a little overkill for a lot of people. But number 1 is my faith in God and what that means, my spiritual life. I believe there's something after this life. And whatever it is to you or to the listener, whether it's the universe or whatever, it's like, what is that? 2's family for me. 3 is like, where's my mental and emotional health? 4 is my physical health. 5 is my profession, not financial. 5 is my profession because I don't have to work anymore. 6 is my financial life, and 7 is my social life. So I will not sacrifice anything that is higher on that scale for something lower. So money is number 6.
Right. Yeah.
Money is all the way down at number 6. So, but it took me a while to learn that.
Sure feels like it's number 1 when you're starting up a small business.
And I think that's a great point. And there's this caveat of when you start a business, you have to do everything you can to keep the lights on, because the number 1 reason why businesses fail is because of lack of cash flow.
That's right.
They run out of money.
That's right.
So I don't want to minimize that and how important that is.
Right. And it does change. Your top 7 can change based on the transition of your life. So,
and I think something that's important is that it's not you hit the nail on the head, depending on where you are in your life. Because when I work, I work from home, and so my kids know, do not come to my office, do not come interrupt me. And I try to do what's called embracing the focused imbalance. I don't believe in this balanced life. You can't excel at anything when you're like, I'm going to spend 3 hours doing that, 3 hours doing that.
Exactly this and exactly
That's
that.
not how it works. So and the same works with my family. Like if I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation. Like that's what I'm doing, focused on.
Right.
But there's a time and season for that for sure.
I had, I think we talked, I had an online education business. And in 2013, got invited to China. And from that sprang into having partners in 24 countries. And I grew up or raised my kids as a single dad. So they spent part of their time with their mom, part of their time. I would fly 16 hours to a meeting in Hong Kong, have 2 days of meetings, fly back to make sure I would be home on time to pick up my kids from their mom's house.
That's incredible, man.
So talk about, and you say balance, but it certainly took its toll on me. But to your point on your priorities, no matter what, nothing can take from the time. Your time is finite. And how you spend it is so critical. And, of course, now my son's 22 and he's an entrepreneur. My daughter graduated in performing arts school, and she's trying to be all she can be in LA. So, again, you look back, those things that you do define not just who you are, but also who your family is, or to your point earlier, the families that depend on you and the business enterprise that you have created.
To me, like that, you going to Hong Kong and coming back and making time for your kids and making sure that you're meeting those obligations, that's true success. That's the stuff that doesn't get celebrated enough, because it's kind of hard to it's easy to say, hey, I built $100 million company. I've done that.
Right.
And it's and it's flashy, and it's like, oh, I want to do that. But honestly, I think that's easier to do than to always be showing up for your kids.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. So, yeah, what a great conversation. You started in law, and how many years did you practice in law?
I only practiced about 3 years after law school.
Okay, but that's a good amount of time. And a large firm or a smaller firm?
So right out of law school, I worked for one of the largest firms in the world, just up the road, 24th Street in Camelback, called Greenberg Traurig.
Okay.
And so that's what I did right out of law school. Incredible job. and moved on from there.
But you learn a lot.
Learned a lot. Worked with the best lawyers in Arizona and the Southwest.
Well, and law school by definition teaches you structure and,
Absolutely.
and like you say, endurance. You've got to be able to endure law school.
Oh, yeah. First year law school, they're just trying to weed out the people that shouldn't be there.
That's right. And then you got to pass the bar.
Yeah.
So I've got some friends who went to law school and never passed the bar. And
Yeah.
one's my CFO. He's proud of the fact that he went to law school and never passed the bar because it drove him to become a CPA, awesome. Which the guy 40 years into the business loves it, could tell you anything about, about the IRS.
Yeah.
Things that, you wish you never had heard before. But,
yeah.
But anyway, so you did that, but you got the bug. So
yeah.
I think family implanted that in your early years.
Yeah.
How did that manifest itself?
I was working for that large law firm, and I was kind of going through this deposition, and one of the main attorneys, like this guy, like well known in the area, and he's asking our client on the stand, like, "Hey, tell me a little bit about your, background or whatever," and he's like, "Well, actually, I went to law school, and I could tell my partner, the guy in charge, is asking him questions, didn't know this." And I'm reading through this. So this is a year after the deposition, right. 6 months after the deposition. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you went to law school. Why'd you quit the practice of law?" And this guy said, "I actually got to the point where I realized that I didn't own anything." And I wasn't there, but in that moment, I'm sitting alone in my office reading this, and I could hear a pin drop, right? Even if I'm putting myself in that moment. And I'm like, that's me, man. I don't own anything. And so how do you own something? You go build it. And so it took me about a year after that moment, but that's what kind of reignited that spark for me.
Okay. And then how long did it take you to go from that moment to actually walking out on your day job and starting your future?
I think it was less than a year, so 8 or 9 months as we were getting, some plans in place.
But that gives you time to think it through. So you are a thoughtful individual. You're not just a reactionary, I got to go do this. I mean, you knew you had to transition, but you gave yourself a little time to discover, to find a path forward. Yeah,
so one of the issues with entrepreneurs is that there's not an idea that we don't love.
That's right, absolutely.
So I have to be careful with that sometimes, and this was one of those moments where I realized, hey, man, I'm quitting the law, which you can't really come back from. And I'm moving my small family from Phoenix to Detroit at a time where Detroit still has its issues, but even back then it was more. And so I wanted to be methodical about it. And we still almost failed. So, it's
10 years ago is about a decade, right?
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, my son was 12. So I would take him to places like Cracker Jacks and, video arcades, and we would pick the driving games, right?
Yeah.
The racing games. And you could pick a beach, course in Hawaii or, a gold, lined street in the UAE somewhere. Or you could pick the burning, fire-ridden track in downtown Detroit. So it's always interesting how Detroit 10 years ago was depicted, and you moved right into it.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, by the way. And I think Detroit's kind of transforming a little bit right now.
Detroit's a little tricky. So we went there specifically because of the perception of it. So we went there right after they bailed out the big three.
Yeah.
That was just a few years after that. But Detroit's got some money because they have, Dodge, Ford, and Chevy there.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of like white collar. There's lots of opportunity there. And one of the best moves we ever made was starting our first business in Detroit, which is kind of a weird statement.
It kept you humble. You humble. All right. Well, anything else you want to, kind of put out for our aspiring entrepreneurial audience, or any, nuggets of gold that you could give them as they begin their journey?
Yeah, I think, I talk about this in my book also, and it's this idea that that risk is less scary than regret.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is a lot of times people, if they're starting a business or they're getting into a relationship or they're investing in something or they're going to school, whatever it is, they only look at what it's going to cost them. They don't look at what it's going to cost them if they don't do it.
The emotional cost.
Exactly. So if I don't, what happens if I don't go to school? What happens if I don't get in this relationship?
Right.
And so I'm really big on, let's assess both sides of the risk.
Okay.
Because, and for me, you asked about when I was starting my first business, like what that was. And I went through this process. I'm like, I got to do it, man. I got to do it. I got to do it for me. Even if I fail, and trust me, I've failed more than the average person. But it was that moment where I realized it's more risky for me to not start this business. Not more financially risky,
right,
but all these other things.
Right. And
so let's, for the entrepreneurs out there, let's make sure that we're analyzing things side by side. And it's not just the risk of doing it, because there's a loss opportunity cost in everything that we decide not to do. And I'm not saying go for everything. I'm just saying make sure that you look at both sides of that risk.
Take a look at it, because not becoming who you could be is a higher cost than trying and failing and maybe trying a couple times, because we've all done it. I mean, I've had several failures, several struggles before I finally got my traction and propelled forward. So, absolutely. Well, with that, we'll end this, and I'd love to come back and talk more about your book.
Let's do it.
And go into a deep dive. So thanks for joining us. Remember, give us a review if you liked the episode. If you didn't, tell us why. And like us on whatever podcast platform you use. And stay tuned for a future episode. Look for the next episode covering Pack Your Lunch.